It is time once again for Good Day Street Talk. Antoine Lewis reporting. Here's what we're working on today. Leaving careers to give back to the community. Meet a former school teacher who is helping kids read in a different kind of way. Then later, an advertising CEO who said goodbye to Madison Avenue and hello to mentoring at-risk youth. And he's getting others to do the same. A little bit later on, thinking of starting your own charity, we're going to show you the tools that you need to know before you make that move. But first, they call her the Indiana Jones of the nonprofit world, a former small business owner determined to help small grassroots charities find much needed support. Naomi Eisenberger is the founding executive director of the Good People Fund. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Antoine.
We like that, the Good People Fund.
Yep.
Tell me about the name and how it came about.
Well, we realized that there are good people in this world, obviously.
Yes, there are.
Some of them are our donors who are giving us money, and the rest of them are individuals. These are the people that we're looking for. There are individuals who had maybe were doing something else in their life and suddenly decided that something was wrong in this world and they were going to be the ones to fix it.
You were one of those people who made such observation. Give us your backstory. What were you doing in your former life? Well,
my former life is a very it's a very varied past. I was a high school history teacher.
Okay.
And then my husband and I took over my father's retail business in New Jersey, and sold men's clothes for a long time. And then in the mid-90s, I met a gentleman who had an organization similar to ours, and kind of fell in love with the idea of what he was doing, and went to volunteer for him, and eventually became a full-time executive managing director of the organization. And then in 2008, he decided that he was retiring, and I said, this work is too important. There are too many people who count on us, and too many donors who count on us because they like what we do and how we do it. And I started over, and that was in January of 2008. And if you remember, in September of 2008, the world as we knew it imploded, and Lehman went under, and Madoff came shortly after, and the economy had tanked, and here we were with a brand new nonprofit. And I think it's a testimony to what we do and how we do that here we are 8 years later, and we've raised over $8 million and given away over $8 million. So obviously it works.
So now explain for people that are going to be watching exactly what it is that you do and who it is that you're helping.
Okay, we look exclusively for small grassroots organizations, and generally they have budgets of well under $500,000. Sometimes they're all volunteer. The central thesis for us is our name, Good People. We're looking for that individual or small group of people who are committed to making change. And most of the time their work is directed to social issues. It can be hunger, kids, disabilities, and so forth. But they've all found creative ways to change the world.
Now, how does the matching work? Do they come to you? Do you seek them out? Or?
Most of the time, we find them.
Okay.
And it's from reading, it's social media, it's TV. It's a knack that I've seemed to have developed over the years, and I can basically meet somebody, have a conversation with them, and in my gut, I know if it's the real thing or not.
So now, if someone is interested, if there's someone who has an idea, you know, who has a grassroots nonprofit idea, or even organization that are trying to get off the ground, what information would you like to make sure that they know so they can maybe?
Well, I would say they could certainly go to our website and see if everything that they see there resonates, and if there's a match. And then the next best thing then is to contact us through the website.
And the address of that is?
The website is www.goodpeoplefund.org.
We like good people, so no, congratulations. We also understand that you are a breast cancer survivor.
I am.
And so you have our best wishes and continued health for that as well.
Thank you.
All right, we'll put the information up on our website.
Okay,
nice
thanks.
to meet you, Naomi.
Good to meet you.
All right, well, coming up, one of the success stories from the Good People Fund and the impact it is having on educating our youth when we return. So clearly, books and libraries are a given, but what about a barber shop? Not the first place that comes to mind, unless you're former school teacher Alvin Irby, the founder and chief reading inspirer of Barbershop Books. Good morning to you, Alvin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, barbershops and books, how did this come about?
I was teaching first grade at PS 69 in Soundview in the Bronx.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, and it's great school. And there's a barber shop across the street from the school. So one day after school, sitting down, getting a haircut, and one of my first graders walks into the barber shop, plops down on the couch, and just stares out the window with this really bored look on his face. Now, the whole time I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, he really should be practicing his reading right now. And I wished I had a children's book that I could give him. I could have given to him to read while he was waiting to get his hair cut. And it was that moment that kind of inspired me to create Barbershop Books.
So you saw this idea, you saw that, would you just go home? It just wouldn't leave you. It didn't shake you clearly.
You know, I went home and I actually wrote a little note about it, saved it in my email or something. And I kind of sat on it actually for a few years. It was my first year teaching. I didn't know if I really had enough knowledge about teaching or education to convince people that they should give me money to try and make it happen. But after having taught for several years, been an education director at the Boys Club of New York in East Harlem, and actually, finished grad school, I said, you know what, there's too much of a need to continue waiting for somebody else to try and do something about the fact that so many boys, especially boys of color, are not proficient in reading. And in 2013, the end of 2013, I decided it was time to actually found an organization and begin doing the work.
So from there, now did you contact the GoFundMe, the Good People Fund?
No, someone reached out to me. They said, we see the work that you're doing and we think that it's really great. We would love to support.
So with this, clearly you have a love for kids. You decided to go into education first of all, and then, like you said, you just mentioned the connection or maybe even the disconnect between reading and young children. You said young men of color. Was that something that you noticed, happening while you were still teaching? That maybe
Absolutely. I think that a lot of young children are really just kind of a reflection of their environment. So what I learned from teaching kindergarten and first grade is that at the end of the day, kids just want to be grown. So whatever they see the grown people in their immediate lives doing, that's what they conclude it means to be a part of their family or their community. And so if the grown people in their lives are not reading for fun, then many of them conclude, well, that's not something that I should do. And so for many young black boys and other boys of color, there aren't lots of relevant reading models. There aren't lots of black male teachers when they're learning to read, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. A lot of boys are raised by single mothers. And so that's really, where Barbershop Books comes in, is that we are connecting books and reading to a male-centered space, and we're involving men in the early reading experiences of young boys.
Clearly, when you think of staples in communities, and particularly in communities of color, church, barbershop, right there.
Yes.
Those are two of the top three. So tell me about the response coming from the barbershops, and how did you even approach barbershops with your idea?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. If they have the space to place our little curated list of books and the colorful bookshelf that we use, it's usually a yes. Pretty much the barbers have been very supportive. The parents are happy and excited to see what happens when their children come into the shop and they see these titles that they love and know or are introduced to in the barbershop. And so it's been really great.
One of the other things, we were just looking at the video and just seeing, you know, the kids are clearly engaged. Is that the feedback you've seen in all of the places that you've
we really focus on making sure that the titles that we're placing in the barbershops are really the most irresistible and most engaging children's books, especially the ones that will attract and engage reluctant readers. Children who love to read will read anything that they can get their hands on, but the children who don't like to read or whose parents aren't really as involved in their early reading experience, we really have to make sure that we're putting the right titles in front of them. And so that's what we're doing at Barbershop Books.
And give us your website for anyone who wants more information.
Anyone who wants to connect with us, you can find out more information on Barbershop at barbershopbooks.org. You can also find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Barbershop Books, all one word, at Barbershop Books.
Now, are you mostly, before you go, in the Bronx, or have you branched out?
We're concentrated in Harlem. We have reading spaces in 10 barbershops in Harlem, one in Brooklyn, one in the Bronx. But we also have this year expanded to other cities around the country. We have 10 in Columbus, Ohio, a few in Phoenix, some in Tampa. So we have begun actually to expand across the country, and looking forward to working with people and communities and parents and educators around the country.
Look at you, man. Congratulations, Alvin. Nice to meet you. All right, everybody, coming up, he left Madison Avenue for a world of public service. That is still to come. You'll meet him when we come back. Paul Murator was a CEO in the fast-paced, high-powered world of advertising and commercial marketing, but he left that sector to devote his time to mentoring at-risk youth. Paul founded Connections, a program within the nonprofit The Children's Village. He's here along with Hassani Caldwell, a young man that he's mentored for the last 2 years. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
You left Madison Avenue, just said, you know what, I'm done. Was it like that, or did it take some time for you to make that decision?
Well, it took 30 years, so I had a good run, and it was a great experience, and I left in March of last year and took a 6-month break and said, what should I do with the rest of my life? And I had been working with the Children's Village for about 30 years as a volunteer in a number of capacities. And when I took a step back, I said, how could I give back in the second half of my life? And I looked at what was going on with at-risk youth, and there were a lot of opportunities there to be had.
Now tell us about the Children's Village for people who may be unfamiliar with it and its work.
So the Children's Village works with at-risk youth in the New York City metro area. We have a beautiful campus in Dobbs Ferry where we house about 325 youth. Okay. And they've been taken from their homes either from an unsafe situation, potentially something that they did that was unsafe, and so they are there in a residential treatment setting. We have a school on campus. The boys, predominantly boys, live in cottages or homes that are between 12 and 16 youth, and that's where they stay for a period of time, usually between 1 to 3 years.
Now, after that, do they transition back to their families, or what's the process?
If there's a family to transition to, we want them to transition back to their community and to their family, and so we work hard to do that. We touch about 10,000 lives a year, and we have about 800 employees, so we're working with a pretty large constituency in terms of trying to reunite those families and keeping the kids whole.
So Connections is the program within this, and explain to us how Connections work and how you're connected to it.
So when I took that 6-month sabbatical and said, what do I want to do, there were a number of pathways that I thought I would pursue, and the more I looked into that, those things that I thought I would be good at already existed. And what was disappointing to me as a volunteer and a mentor to a lot of the boys over the years was when they left Children's Village and went back into those communities, there were obstacles that they saw as unsurmountable. And so they took a step back and instead of taking a step forward. Things like education, job training, social skills. And so I said, how could I add to the system that was already there, because there are so many resources available, and how could I connect those resources to those youth as they move out of the system and live fully independent lives? So unlike the mentors at Children's Village who stay with Children's Village and do great work with those kids, my mentors at Connection will live beyond Children's Village with the boy for a period of at least a year. And for situations like Hassani, we've been friends now for 2 years, and hopefully will be as he continues his life and we stay connected for the next 10 or 20 years. But our job at Connections is to take them to that next step or to the next few steps, as those obstacles can sometimes really destabilize what was done at the Children's Village.
Let's bring in Hassani. And Hassani, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So how did you two meet? You were already in the program?
I was already in Children's Village, and they kept on telling me, you need a mentor, you need a mentor, I think a mentor would be fitting for you. I kept on turning it down. No, I think I'm good. I don't need a mentor. They finally sat me down and had me cornered. They had me sit down with Paul, and I like what he stood for, and that's how our relationship started. We went out. He told me more about his life and his story, and I could relate to it. And then from there, we just built a nice relationship built off of morals and respect.
So tell me, are you from New York, or where in New York are you from?
I'm originally born in the Virgin Islands, but I grew up. I was raised in Brooklyn.
Okay, Brooklyn boy. So with that, you said that there are a number of kids, in the program like that. So how do you mentor Hassani? Like, in which areas? What do you do? Just explain to us the connection, the relationship.
Sure. So when you meet someone like Hassani as a mentor, you normally spend about the first 3 months of that relationship just getting to know one another.
Right.
And it was great to meet somebody like Hassani who had so much potential and wanted to do things. He just wasn't sure which pathway to follow. So we had lots of conversations about whether he wanted to be a policeman, whether he wanted to go into the armed services. And so we explored those things together. And so they were meaningful experiences. Sometimes they were just fun. We would share a meal, go out for the afternoon. He had a good time at a high school football game for my local high school football team, and met my daughter and her friends. And so we shared life together. And then in that process, he actually settled on an education path. Helped introduce him to the college campus and what that was like to study those things and to test it. So a lot of the other things that we explored together didn't pan out for him, but it was exciting to see him come alive, to realize that there were meaningful opportunities for him to continue his own development.
So Hassani, which path are you on now? Did you make a decision about how you're going to give back to the community?
Yes, sir. I decided to just take an educational.
Stop calling me sir, but go ahead.
I decided to, I chose the educational path. And right now, I'm currently in school full-time. I work, and I'm actually giving back by being a part of this mentor program and another mentor program where I give back to kids in foster care.
Really? So what year are you in school? Like, how close are you to finishing?
I graduate next year.
Look at this.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to throw you a curveball here. When you think about the last 2 years and how Paul has been there and influenced you, just be honest, what are your thoughts on Paul?
When I first met Paul, I thought that we wouldn't get along because we're from two different backgrounds. But I feel like Paul is an honest guy that has good intentions and means well. Just by knowing Paul, he has shaped my outlook on life. He has broadened my perspective, added to my morals and things that I live by. And he just welcomed me in as family and helped me change my outlook on life and just helped build me up into the man that I see myself 5-10 years from now. So he's a wonderful guy.
Hassani, you have our best wishes.
Yes, sir.
And you come back and keep us in touch with how you are doing. Paul, if anybody is interested in also becoming a mentor at the program, what's the website or the contact info that we can pass along to them?
Our website is childrensvillage.org/connections. Would love to have people mentor. It's an easy task. You bring who you are to the experience. And really, relationships are the basis for human transformation. And so just that one-on-one connection really means a lot to the kids. Would love to have people there.
Very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
You too, man.
Thank you.
And good luck to you both.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up, for those looking to start their own nonprofit, you're going to meet our next guest. She's got all the things that you need to know to tell you to do this. We'll be right back. Well, if you're thinking of starting your own nonprofit, then look no further. The Nonprofit Coordinating Committee of New York is the voice of New York City area nonprofits. Joining me now for more is its president, Sharon Staple. Sharon, good morning to you.
Good
morning. For people who do not know about the NPCC. Yes. All right. Tell us all about it.
NPCC is a 30-year-old organization. We're a nonprofit ourselves. We help nonprofits in New York City in 2 ways. We have 1,400 members, and for those members, we give them education, information, resources, all of the things you need to start or continue your nonprofit. And we also save them money through cost savings programs. And then we also work in the broader nonprofit community to engage in advocacy and public policy work on issues that are important to nonprofits and to promote good governance in nonprofits.
So if someone has an idea, and I think at some point all of us have thought, you know what, I want to do this, I want to do that, It begins with an idea, but then what's the next step?
Well, I think the first thing you really have to ask yourself is, do you really want to start a nonprofit, right? Starting a nonprofit is starting a business. And it takes more than passion to achieve your mission in a business. You can be really passionate about an issue, and I think the first thing we'd say is look around and see, is anybody else working on that issue? Is there anything else is there anyone else who's doing this where you could volunteer, where you could get a job there? I think some of the folks that we've seen in the rest of this program have had really innovative ideas where nothing else was going on. So you might find yourself in a position where you really think, I've got to start this organization. And in that case, there are quite a few things to think about. We have a checklist on our website on npccny.org that has more than 35 different steps to take, but to sort of summarize it, there are 5 sort of broad categories that you want to look at. The first is, what is your mission? What's your vision? What's your name? Who are you? The second is, what's your governance structure going to be like? Who's going to be on your board? How are you going to run your board? The third is, what are the legal and other compliance issues that you need to think about? Because, again, you're running a business. The fourth is, you really want to think about your business model, your plan. How are you going to raise money? How are you going to execute programs that have an impact? How are you going to staff those programs? And the last is really focused on personnel. What are your policies going to be? What are your benefits? How are you going to think about staffing up the program?
How important is transparency and accountability with this?
Well, I mean, it's critical all the time, but it's especially critical for nonprofits, because nonprofits are created to forward the public good, right? It's for the public. And so I think it's really important that nonprofits are able to clearly communicate to their donors, to the folks who are using their services, to the general public, what it is they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and really be able to have conversations about the impact that the work of the nonprofit.
Now, a number of nonprofits have been impacted by budget cuts, you know, over the last couple of years. Is that the biggest challenge? And from what you're seeing, how are they navigating, you know, dealing with that issue?
It's tough. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest challenges for sure. Nonprofits can have a difficult time figuring out what the right revenue sources are and how to maintain those, right? There's government grants, foundations, private donors, corporate partners. And certainly when the economy is weak, so then are nonprofit revenue streams, right? And people have to think about that. But there are other challenges as well. I mean, sustaining a nonprofit, NPCC has 8 key areas of nonprofit excellence, all of which people need to pay attention to. And sustaining a nonprofit and keeping track of all of that while also doing the work of your mission and your program can be a huge challenge. And then also, I think, engaging with donors and letting people know that you're there, raising your visibility, making sure people know who you are and what you do, that can be a challenge, especially for small nonprofits.
So you have clearly counseled and helped get some nonprofits on the road. Without mentioning any names, was there ever one that you thought, I don't know if this is going to work, and then to your surprise, it did in fact work?
Well, I don't know that I have that example to tell, but I will tell you one of the things we're proudest of is we run the New York Community Trust Nonprofit Excellence Awards, which evaluates nonprofits. And one of our winners in recent years told us that she started her nonprofit by using our nonprofit checklist to start a nonprofit. And to go from a place where you are just thinking about starting your nonprofit and trying to figure this all out, to being in a position of winning the Nonprofit Excellence Awards is, I think, a really amazing trajectory and arc. And while I'm proud of the role that NPCC played in that, really all of that work is done by the good people who are working at the nonprofits, and frankly, the people that they're serving and working with in the communities that they're in.
Well, we know that communities thrive and we need nonprofits, so all the work that you're doing is so very important.
Thank
and we're so glad to know that there is an organization and our people, you know, to help those with those passions, develop them, and then thus help the community.
We think strong nonprofits change the world, and we think it's our job to support them.
What's your website, my dear?
www.npccny.org, and we're also on Twitter and Facebook at NPCCNY.
Nice to meet you, Sharon.
It was so great to meet you, too.
All right, stick around. To learn more about today's topics, go to fox5ny.com. You can also like us on Facebook as well as follow us on Twitter. And for all of us here at Fox 5, I'm Antoine Lewis. We'll see you next time for more Street Talk. And as always, thanks for the company.